Right, so this video is going to cover chapter 14 of improving vocabulary skills. We'll start off with just going over the words and their pronunciation and take a guess as to the parts of speech. So our first word here is averse, detract, disdain, divulge, elation, that's a clue there, shun, endow, expulsion, there's a clue there, mortify, this ify is a bit of a clue. Nullify, the same. And ominous, the OUS is a bit of a clue for you. All right, so our first word here is averse, and this one is an adjective. That little boy was once so averse to tomatoes that the very sight of them made him gag. Being averse to screaming crowds, I'd rather just listen to my iPod than go to a rock concert. So averse means opposed. And one of the things you'll notice here is that averse is followed by the preposition to. So that's something to keep in mind. So what averse means opposed, but not opposed in the sense of that you are fighting against something, but more that you dislike something for one reason or another. So if we look at the first example, it says, I'm adverse to tomatoes, or the boy was averse to tomatoes, that it made him gag or made him throw up or almost throw up. So it just means that there's sort of an intense dislike because that thing that you're averse to causes pain or discomfort for you. In the second example, it's the person is averse to screaming crowds, meaning that those crowds, really loud crowds of people, make the person feel bad or feel uncomfortable. Some people actually have a phobia of crowds. So averse is a word that you may also hear in the doctor's office if you go there. The doctor may talk about having adverse reactions to medication. What that means is that if you have an adverse reaction to a medication, take for example penicillin. Some people are sort of allergic to penicillin. They can't use it, and when they use it, maybe they break out in a rash or get red marks or something like that. So that's a adverse reaction to something. So you're having a negative physical or emotional reaction to someone. So keep that in mind. Averse doesn't mean opposed to in the sense of that you're fighting it. It just means that you have a negative reaction to something, meaning that being involved or seeing that thing causes you discomfort. The next one here is detract, and this one is a verb. Julius thinks the scar on his face detracts from his good looks, but it's barely noticeable. All of the litter in the park certainly detracts from the beauty of the trees and the flowers. So what detract means to take away from. Now we first want to look for a preposition that goes with it, and we'll see that detract is followed by from. So when we say take away from, we're not literally taking something away. So we're not actually moving anything. But when we're saying that detract means to take away from, meaning that it reduces the value of something. So in the first one, it's saying that the scar, this mark on his face, detracts from his good looks. What that means is it makes his good looks less good or worse. In the second one, it detracts from the beauty of the trees and the flowers. So it makes them less beautiful. Litter means like garbage. Garbage in the park makes the park less beautiful. Specifically, the trees and the flowers are beautiful, but it makes them see less beautiful because of all of the um, because of all the garbage that's there. So detract from means to reduce the value of something. Our next word is disdain, and this one's a noun. The snobby server in the French restaurant viewed Tanya with disdain because she couldn't pronounce anything on the menu. I was afraid my request to see the state senator would be treated with disdain. Instead, the senator's secretary politely made an appointment for me. So, disrespect. And we'll notice this one is that in both of these ones, we have the preposition with before the word disdain. So in most of the other examples, we had a preposition after it, but in this case, we have a preposition before it. Okay, but on to the meaning. Disdain does mean disrespect, but it's a special kind of disrespect. When you treat someone with disdain, and that expression is often used using the verb to treat with disdain. It means that you behave with them um, in a manner of disrespect, but the reason for the disrespect is that you believe that that person is not as good as you. We'd say is below you. For example, in some societies, well, in I guess in all societies, let's just take here for the United States. You have people who are very wealthy, and you have people who are very poor. So what might happen is that if you were a very wealthy person walking down the street, you might treat a homeless person with disdain, meaning that you disrespect them. But the disrespect is because you think that you are better than that person. Um, it happens just in terms of education too. Someone who has a lot of education might treat a person who doesn't have very much education with disdain. It might also happen for racial reasons, right? That someone who is white might treat someone who is Hispanic with disdain because they think being white is better than being Hispanic. So when we talk about disdain, oftentimes it's not so much of you, it's not disrespect of you as a person, but more it's disrespect because of who or what you are. So in the first example, right, the French waiter is treating this woman Tanya with disdain because she can't speak French. So the French waiter, thinks that he's better than her. In the second one, this person was afraid that the state senator, this is someone in government, would treat someone who's not in government with disrespect. So keep that in mind. All right, moving on to our next one. Sorry, I had a microphone issue there. Sorry, but the next one here is divulge, and this one is a verb. My father wouldn't divulge the type of car he had bought, saying only, "It's a surprise." It's against the law to ask people to divulge their age at a job interview. So what divulge means is to tell, or really what it means is to reveal. So when we say divulge, we wouldn't, you could say, tell me what time it is, or tell me where you're going. Um, but we wouldn't necessarily say divulge where you're going, because divulge has more of a meaning of that something is, when you divulge something, you're telling something that is a secret, or that is unknown to most people. That you're telling something that maybe is not something that you would want everybody to know. So in the first example, he wouldn't divulge the type of car. He's not going to tell them what type of car because he doesn't want them to know, because he wants it to be a surprise. In the second example, I don't know if you knew this, but it really is against the law for someone to ask you how old you are when they're interviewing you, because it's against the law to hire someone or not hire someone based on their age. The same way you can't ask about if someone is married or whether or not they have children. This information is private information, and it shouldn't be asked about in a job interview, because you're not allowed to base hiring decisions on that. So divulge means that you're sharing a secret, or you're sharing something that maybe you wouldn't want to tell everyone. One of the things that may strike you, that I think most people feel, is that most people don't want to divulge their weight, right? They don't want to say how much they weigh, um, to other people, because it's a private thing. It's something that you wouldn't want to really share. Our next word here is elation, and this one is a noun. The principal shouted with elation when the football team scored the winning touchdown. Roy had expected to feel elation at his graduation. Instead, he felt sadness at the thought of not seeing his high school friends every day. So elation means happiness. But elation is more than just happiness. Elation, it comes from the word elated, which is an adjective, um, but which also means happy. But it's an extreme level of happiness. The way that I remember this, there's another word um, that we talked about, which was um, escalate, which means to bring up. So it's not related, but they sort of sound the same. Escalate, elate, um, but but elation is a happiness that's like at the maximum level of happiness. It's the highest level of happiness. So you might feel like when your child is born, you might feel elation. This is a very, very high level of happiness. If you were in high school or in college and you tried out for a sports team or for a play that was very competitive and you got into it, you would feel elation. If you were on a sports team and your team won the championship, you would feel elation. If you're a fan of a sports team, a soccer team, or a football team, and your team won the championship, you would feel elation. So it's a happiness, but an extremely high level of happiness. Our next word here is endow, and this one is a verb. Nature has endowed hummingbirds with the ability to fly backwards. The author Oscar Wilde was endowed with the ability to find humor in any situation. While dying, he said of the ugly wallpaper in his hotel room, "One of us has to go." And endow means to equip. Um, so, but endow means to basically what endow means. It means to give, when something powerful gives something to something less powerful, and it's giving that thing or that ability for the less powerful thing to use in its life or in its situation. So in the first example, you can either use the word nature, or you can use the word God has given hummingbirds this ability to fly backwards. So a powerful thing has given a less powerful thing an ability. In the second example, when we say that a person, Oscar Wilde is a person, he's a famous playwright from England, but he was given, and you can either say by God or by nature, a natural ability to find the humor or find the funny things in any situation. Another use of this word endow is often used with universities. Universities will often have an endowment. And what this means is that an endowment is money that someone rich, and in that sense rich and powerful, has given to the university for the university to use for whatever purposes. But we use the word endow because it has the same meaning of someone powerful giving something to someone less powerful for that less powerful thing to use however it sees fit. Our next word here is expulsion, and this ends in this sion, making it a noun. The manager told us we risked expulsion from the theater if we continued to talk on our cell phones during the movie. Expulsion from school is supposed to be a punishment, but some students may consider not being allowed to attend class as a reward. So expulsion means being forced out. If we look here, expulsion is followed by the preposition from. So expulsion is related to the word expel. Expel means to kick out. Actually, I think it is, but it may not be because it's expel. I'm not sure. Anyway, but the meaning is the same. Expel means to kick someone out of a certain place, and expulsion is the same thing. Expel is the verb, and expulsion is actually the noun. Expulsion normally means you're permanently kicked out of somewhere. So in the first example, expulsion from the theater means that you're kicked out. You can't come back in, at least not for that particular movie that you're watching. Expulsion from school is different than suspension from school. Suspension from school means that maybe for 2 or 3 days or maybe a week, you're not allowed to come to school. But expulsion means that you're kicked out of school. You can never come back to it. So if you were talking about, in the university, if you faced expulsion from the university or from Nova, it would mean you're kicked out of the whole college. You can't come back to the college. Hopefully nobody gets into that situation. The next word here is mortify, and this is a verb. And this ify, oftentimes you'll find is a verb. Not 100%, but often. It would mortify me if my voice cracked during my choir solo. I doubt anything will ever mortify me more than the streamer of toilet paper that clung to my shoe as I returned from the ladies' room to rejoin my date in a fancy restaurant. So mortify means to shame. Now, if we look at this word mortify, it comes from the word, well, it's related to the word mortification. But if we look at this is a word that has a Latin root. So if you're a French or a Spanish speaker, or Portuguese speaker, this will probably be a word that's similar in English as it is in your language. In Spanish, the word muerto means death, and the root of this is the same. So when we say to mortify, it means it embarrassed me to death. Not literally, it didn't kill you, but it made you feel so embarrassed that you wish that you were dead. Right? That something to mortify you, it's incredibly embarrassing, incredibly shameful. So I don't know that the first example is such a good example if you're not a singer, which I'm not. But the second one is the person is at a fancy restaurant and they have toilet paper coming out of their shoe, and they're walking across this fancy restaurant with toilet paper on their shoe. So it would be so embarrassing that you wish that you were dead. One of the things, I don't know if you have these dreams. I don't. But some people do. Of coming to school without any pants on. Right? This is like you would be mortified if you came to school without pants on, because it's so embarrassing, right? It's so embarrassing, and it's the sort of thing that people are going to remember. So our next word here is nullify, and this one again is this ify ending, making it a verb. The college will nullify my student ID at the end of the term unless I update it with a new sticker. A software drink company decided to nullify its contract with a well-known athlete because he was convicted of drunken driving. What nullify means is to cancel. Now, if we look at this word, the first part of it is null. And when we talk about null, you actually may see this on your blackboard scores sometimes. It may have there may be a subject, and then afterwards it will say null. Null means just nothing. There's nothing there. It doesn't mean zero. It just means there's nothing there. So if you have a grade up there and the teacher hasn't entered any score, it may say null, meaning there's no grade there. So when we talk about nullifying something, basically we're taking something that existed and we're making it not exist. We're making it null, not happen anymore. So in the first or not happen or not work anymore. So in the first example, if we nullify the student ID, what it means is that the student ID works, but if it's nullified, it's like it's like it's not there. It doesn't work. It doesn't have any purpose. Um, in the second one, if they nullified their contract, it means that the contract, this agreement between the company and the athlete, it's not there anymore. It's gone. It doesn't exist. Okay, so nullified doesn't mean make it to zero. It just means make it disappear. That it doesn't exist anymore. Um, the last word here we have is ominous, and this one is also, well, this one is an adjective, and the OUS should clue us into that. To many, cemeteries have an ominous quality, particularly at night or on Halloween, when the threat of ghosts can seem very real. The sore's failure to heal was ominous, a possible sign of cancer. So what ominous means is threatening. Now again, if we take a look at the parts of this word, ominous is from the root word omen. An omen is a bad sign. There's actually a famous movie that you may not know because I think it's from the 70s, called The Omen, and this is a scary movie. But basically, an omen means a bad sign for the future, meaning something bad is likely to happen. So some of the common omens in American culture is like if you see a black cat, right? If a black cat walks in front of your path, this is supposed to give you bad luck. If you break a mirror, you're supposed to have 7 years of bad luck. If I think there's something about a bird. I don't know, like a black bird flying over is a bad sign, meaning that the future is likely to be bad. So when we describe something as ominous, it means that that thing we're describing is a bad sign for something that's going to happen in the future. So if we say that cemeteries are ominous, it means that the idea is that if you go to them, or especially at night, something bad is likely to happen in a cemetery because of ghosts or whatever. In the second example, it's saying the sore's failure to heal. So what this means is that you have an injury, but it's not getting better. So because it's not getting better, that's a bad sign that maybe it might be cancer if it's not healing normally. Okay, so ominous means it's something that that is happening right now that has a bad that is predicting something bad to happen later on in the future. All right, so go ahead and do the activities for this. Bring any of your questions to class, and we'll see you there. Take care. Bye.